What's up guys, Asian here again with another build video, and today we're going to be going over the Stamina Nightblade. So the Stamina Nightblade still remains as the top DPS spec in the game right now. That's out of all the magic DPS and all the other Stamina DPS classes. Combined with their really powerful execute with Killer's Blade, along with their very great sustain, Nightblades pretty much rule the pack when it comes to DPS, and that hasn't changed in Wrathstone. While Magicka DPS to Magicka Nightblade in particular has gotten a little bit closer, Stamina Nightblade still lead the pack by not as large of a margin as it has in the past, but it's definitely still a noticeable margin, to the point where a lot of those score pushing guilds will try to run as many Stamina Nightblades as they possibly can in order to get that additional DPS. So, like the rest of our build videos, we'll be going over our gear, our skills, attributes, everything you need to know to basically recreate this build yourself. When we go over our gear, and we will go over kind of some additional sets that you might want to consider running instead, in case you don't have access to DLCs, or you're just starting off, you don't necessarily have the time to farm all the set pieces, but still want to do vet trials kind of thing. So we'll go over a couple of substitutions there. We will talk about our rotation, and then we will do a 6-minute dummy parse so you guys can get an idea of what kind of DPS a Stamina Nightblade is able to pull. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started first with our gear. So, starting off with our Monster Helm set, we are running Velidreth. There's basically only really 2 Monster Helm sets that you would run as a Stamina Nightblade, and this is one of them. Velidreth's is a DLC set, so the other set is going to be a little bit easier to obtain just because it is his basic game. But Velidreth is a little bit stronger than the other set there. So it gives you 129 weapon damage, and it has a chance to spawn 3 disease spores whenever you deal damage that deals a certain amount of disease damage. Now, Velidreth is particularly strong because each of those disease spores actually has a chance to hit the same enemy. So if your enemy has a large enough hitbox, 2 or 3 spores may actually hit the enemy at the same time, which, as you can imagine, means more DPS out of the proc. The other set, Selene's, is the other set that I'm talking about. Let me see if I can find it here. Selene's, on the other hand, only has 1 hit, so it's still a very good set to run, but because of that limitation, it only hits 1 enemy at a time. It doesn't necessarily have the same sort of potential DPS that Velidreth has. That being said, though, Selene's is a lot easier to obtain because it is a base game set. So those are your 2 Monster Helm options there. You will notice that they are both medium. We are going 7 medium in this build here. We do want the additional weapon crit out of the medium armor passives there, so we are going all medium. Our body set is Relequen's. I have the perfected version here. You can go with the imperfect version if you don't have the capability or you don't have the time to really farm for perfect Relequen. So perfect Relequen will drop from Vet Cloud Rest +1 and above. So you do need access to Somerset DLC as well as a team to actually complete Vet Cloud Rest +1 or above. But if you don't have access, you don't have the team necessary to complete Vet Cloud Rest +1, then you can use the imperfect version in the meantime. That can just be farmed just from normal Cloud Rest. Relequent is definitely the strongest body set that you can have right now. That set, 5-piece set bonus, deals a significant amount of damage, so I would highly recommend picking this up if you intend on being a Stamina DPS. For our armor and traits and enchants, we are doing all divines, all stamina enchants here. There's really no reason to go infused. Infused is not really going to be any stronger than divines. In fact, it is a noticeably weaker than divines, so you still want to have all 7 divines here, as well as all stamina enchants as well. Now for our front bar set, we're still going with Advanced Yokeda. It is still going to be the strongest set for us in terms of a front bar option here. So we have the jewelry and the weapons. So Advanced Yokeda is a heavy armor set that you can get only from Heldra's Citadel, so you will need to get jewelry and weapons here. And again, you will need to transmute your jewelry because it is a heavy armor set. So it comes in healthy, so you will need to transmute it to either Bloodthirsty or Infused. Infused is significantly stronger than Robust for Stamina DPS because you have a lot more weapon damage modifiers than you have max stamina modifiers. So there's really no reason to run robust jewelry pretty much in any stamina set unless you don't have the transmute to transmute it right away. So go with any combination of Bloodthirsty or Infused. 3 Bloodthirsty is going to be the strongest in most scenarios, but there are situations where you might want to run Infused instead of Bloodthirsty because of the nature of the fight itself. Weapon damage enchants on all of our jewelry pieces. And then we have double daggers on the front bar here. We have Nirn on the main hand, and we have sharpened on the offhand. And for our enchants, we have a poison damage and an absorb stamina enchant as well. Doesn't really matter which hand your enchants go on because neither of them are infused. So you can put the absorb stamina on the main or off, and same thing with the poison damage enchant. Our back bar is a Maelstrom Bow infused with a weapon damage enchant. Now there are a few other options here that you might want to consider for body and front bar sets, and I have them down in the description below, but I will cover as many of them as I can in this video right now. So Briarheart is one set that you might want to consider picking up. This can be either a body set or a front bar set depending on what your other set is. It is probably easier to have it as a front bar set because it is a proc set, so it will carry over to the back bar. This is an overland set, so you can farm this from Hrothgar, or you can buy it off of guild traders if you don't have access to Hrothgar. It already comes in robust jewelry, so you don't necessarily need to worry about transmuting it from arcane or healthy. The robust jewelry is going to be a little bit more expensive than the arcane or healthy versions because it can come in all three traits, but it is again easier to obtain than Advanced Yokeda in some instances. So you can personally, you can go with Briarheart if you'd like. It does give you a nice heal whenever you crit while the proc is active, so it is helpful for things like VMA or instances where you might want a little bit more swappability. Other sets that you might want to run, let's see if I can find them here. I have a lot of sets because I was testing quite a few things over the duration here. I believe all Magicka stuff. So other stamina set that you might want to consider running. One set that I don't actually have on hand right now is going to be the Ravager. That's just because it is a PvP set. So you will have to purchase this either off of guild traders, or you can buy it from coffers in Cyrodiil. So it is the Ravager. I believe you can get it from Blisteria. So you can buy coffers with I believe it's 12,000 AP each, and it'll give you a random piece of Ravager. So it is a heavy armor set, so very similar to Advanced Yokeda. You will need to transmute the jewelry, you will need jewelry and weapons. So Ravager does give you one max health one max health armor bonus, so it doesn't have quite as much in terms of the 2, 3, 4 piece, but the 5 piece gives you a very, very strong boost to weapon damage. That's why Ravager is another potential option here for a front bar set. Another set that you might want to consider running is going to be Tsogvin's. If you don't want to farm for Advanced Yokeda, Tsogvin's is a medium armor set that is dropped from the new dungeon. I believe it is dropped from, let me see if I can find it. Tsogvin's. It's dropped from Frostvault, so it basically acts as a slightly weaker version of Advanced Yokeda, so it's not going to be quite as strong as Advanced Yokeda, but it does save you one global cooldown because you don't have to worry about applying Rearming Trap anymore. In addition, it also gives additional physical penetration, so you can drop a few points from piercing because you have additional penetration from Tsogvin's. So it is a fairly decent option. Arguably, it is going to be easier to get Tsogvin's from Frostvault. It's also a medium armor set, so you can run something like Relequen jewelry instead if you have trouble getting the Tsogvin's jewelry, for example. So that is an option that you could potentially run. That is one option there. Another set that you could run that I don't have on hand right now is going to be Hunding's Rage. This is a crafted set. It is a 6 trait set, so you will need to have 6 traits known in whatever you want to craft it as. And it is a base game set, so as long as you have access to the base game, then obviously you can either craft, buy, or get somebody to craft Hundings for you. So it is a craftable set, so very, very easy to obtain. The 5 piece is a static bonus, so you will want to wear this as the body set instead, not necessarily a front bar set. And now, one other set that I'm going to try to find here is going to be Leviathan. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. You can run Leviathan, so this basically gives you a crap ton of weapon crit. Because it is also a static bonus, you want this on the body set instead. This is a medium armor set found in Crypto Parts, so this is a base game set, so 1 or 2. Obviously, Crypto Parts 1 is going to be easier to complete. And you can run this on the body, so you can just farm this on normal while you're trying to get Relequens all set up. So you do have several options when it comes to sets if you aren't able to get Relequen, or if you don't want to farm Advanced Yokeda right away. One other set that I do want to mention is going to be a Mechanical Acuity. It is a fairly decent set here, but it's not going to be quite as strong as some other sets, so it's not going to be quite as strong as Advanced Yokeda, for example. But this is a crafted set. You can craft it from Clockwork City. I believe it requires 6 traits in order to craft it, or it might be 7. I'm not 100% certain on it. But this is a crafted set, so again, very easy to obtain. You can buy it off Guild Traders. You can craft it yourself. You can get somebody else to craft it for you. So definitely another good option to consider if you don't want to farm, or you don't have time to farm in advancing Yokeda, or you don't have the daggers just yet. So those are your set options there. Moving on now to our character sheet. I am an orc. Orcs are going to give you the best DPS potential out of any of the races. So they have 2,000 additional max stamina and 258 additional weapon damage. Dark Elves are going to be the next best option. They have 1875 max stamina and 258 weapon damage. From there are a couple of other races you could choose. Khajiits get 10% additional critical damage, as well as 875 max stamina, magicka, and health. So you get a little bit of additional health as a Khajiit, which does help out your survivability. The 10% additional crit damage done is not going to be quite as strong as a Nightblade because you already have very high crit damage already, but it does help out your DPS there. Finally, you do have 2 sustain options. So you have 2 sustain races. You have Bosmer, the Wood Elves, and the Redguard. So the Bosmer get 2,000 additional max stamina, and they have 258 stamina regen. The Redguards, on the other hand, get 2,000 max stamina, and they get stamina back every time they deal direct. I believe it's direct damage. So they get, I think it's 950 additional stamina every 5 seconds whenever they deal direct damage. So those 2 races do not have any sort of additional damage modifiers. They don't have weapon damage, they don't have crit chance or crit damage, but they do have a lot of sustain on the other hand. So it is very nice to be able to sustain a full light attack rotation without necessarily have to worrying about anything. The Wood Elves will have slightly better sustain than the Redguards, but the Redguards are still a very strong sustain race there. That being said though, Orcs and Dark Elves do out DPS them as long as you're able to fully sustain a rotation. For our attributes, all points are into stamina. You can put a few points into health if you would like. I would personally put probably no more than up to 10 points into health. At that point, you're kind of giving up a little bit too much damage there for my taste. For our Mundstone, we're going with the Shadow. The Shadow was buffed in Wrathstone, so now it provides 19% additional crit damage with 7 Divines, 13% base, so very powerful now. You can use the Lover instead. If you decide to go with the Lover, you will obviously have to change out your offhand trait. So instead of going Nirn Sharpened, you would go with Nirn Precise instead, because the Lover does provide you with enough sort of penetration that you don't need the sharpen on the offhand, and you have to take out points from piercing as well. So you have a completely different CP setup if you decide to go with the Lover. The DPS difference between running the Shadow and a lot of points into piercing and that sharpened offhand compared to running the Lover is going to be a little bit small. The Shadow does usually end up winning out, so that's just something to keep in mind there. For food, I am running Lava Foot. That is your parse food here, so it basically replicates getting orbs and blue food a little bit. It's a little bit less than blue food, but it does replicate getting orbs on cooldown if you were using blue food. If you have sustained issues, you should be using Dubious Camoran Throne or Artaeum Takeaway Broth. That gives you max health, max stamina, and stamina regen. So it's very nice to have that additional stamina regen if you have issues sustaining. Nightblades, typically speaking, should be able to run blue food with good orb support, a good sustain support there. That being said though, if you are having issues with sustain, swap over to Dubious Camoran Throne or Artaeum Takeaway Broth. Now for our skill bars. For our front bar, we have Killer's Blade, Surprise Attack, Rending Slashes, Relentless Focus, Rearming Trap, and Flawless Dawnbreaker. We're not using Flawless Dawnbreaker as our ultimate. This is just here for the weapon damage passive boost. Our back bar, Razor Caltrops, Poison Injection, Endless Hail, Leeching Strikes, Rearming Trap again, and Incapacitating Strike. This is going to be the ultimate that we will be using primarily. Rearming Trap, you'll notice, is on both of our bars here. You can really cast it on any of your bars, so front or back bar, but if you are running Advancing Yokeda, you do want to limit your back bar rotation to 3 abilities maximum, and I'll go over that when I talk about a rotation. So it's usually easier just to cast it on the front bar. I cast it on the front bar, but you can cast it on the back bar if you so desire. Moving on to our CP points. The CP cap is unchanged between Wrathstone and Murkmire, so the CP cap is still 810, which gives us 270 points to put across each of our different constellation types. So starting off with our green CPs, I have 100 Mooncalf, 100 Tenacity, 100 Tenacity. You can reduce this down to 75% if you would like. such as this. This gives you 120 points to play around wherever you'd really like. So you can do 40 Shadow Ward, 40 Tumbling, and then 40 Warlord. But if you would like to have the additional sustain, you can go 100 if you would like, and have that 70 points to put wherever you'd like. Green CPs are going to vary a little bit depending on which trial you're running, but a balanced approach is always a decent approach to go for. Now for our blue CPs, this particular setup is assuming that you're running the Shadow with the sharpened offhand. So I will go over our blue CPs if you're running the Lover with the precise offhand instead. But this is what I have for our current setup here. So 49 Mighty, 61 Piercing, 52 into Precise Strikes and Thaumaturge, and then 56 into Master at Arms. Now if you are going to be running the Lover, obviously you don't need as many points into Piercing. You're also using a precise offhand. So if you are running the Lover instead, you can drop Piercing down to 28 instead. Bring Precise Strikes up to 66, bring Master at Arms up to 66, drop Thaumaturge, oh actually no, you want to drop Master at Arms down to 1, Piercing down to 27, and Mighty up to 64, so you'd have 64 Mighty, 27 Piercing, 66 Precise Strikes, 52 Thaumaturge, and 61 Master at Arms, if you were to go with Lover as your Mundstone instead. Now for our red CPs, this particular setup that I have is a balanced approach, which is good for pretty much all content, but it is not necessarily maximizing your mitigation across any single piece of content. So you might need to play around with your red CPs in order to get the best mitigation for any single piece of content. 81 Ironclad, 61 Thick Skin, and 64 into Hardy and Elemental Defender. Alright, so that's pretty much it for all the build information. Now let's go ahead and talk about our rotation itself. So very similar to the Magic Nightblade, we are going to be doing a dynamic rotation. We want to prioritize our bow proc from Relentless focus here. So that is really important. So you want to make sure we're not sitting on that bow proc too often. We want to get it off, because while we have the bow proc up, we aren't able to generate stacks to get a new bow proc. So very similar to Magic Nightblades, our goal is to get at least 3 bow procs off with each activation of our Relentless focus here. In terms of dots, all of our backbar dots are very important to maintain. Endless Hail, Caltrops, Poison Injection, they're very strong dots. If you're running the Maelstrom backbar, obviously you want to make sure Endless Hail is ticking away, because it's a very powerful source of DPS. Poison Injection, particularly when you get to that execute point, deals a lot of damage so you do want to maintain that Poison Injection uptime. Minor Force is also important to maintain, so that is your Rearming Trap. If you need to drop a dot, you can drop Rending Slashes. While Rending Slashes does do a good amount of DPS, it is not going to be a top contender for your top spots DPS contribution, so if you need to drop it, then go ahead and drop it here. Now, as an Orc or a Dark Elf, you do want to try to maintain Leeching as best you can. If you're a Wood Elf, a Redguard, or a Khajiit, it's a little bit less necessary to maintain Leeching, but you still kind of want to try to keep it up as best you can here. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and kind of demonstrate the rotation here. I will not be using Incapacitating Strike as the ultimate, just because I want to save it for the actual 60-man dummy parse, but you will, generally speaking, be using this last if you are going to be using Incapacitating Strike, but I'll show you guys what I mean when we go over our rotation. So pre-buff with Leeching and Relentless, and then use Rearming Trap. We always start on the back bar here, get our dots going. So I like to use the Rearming Trap on the front bar, like I mentioned earlier. I'll try to give you guys a demonstration of when you want to swap over to your front bar. So 3 abilities on the back bar at most, then go back to your front bar. So here we're going to break up our back bar rotation. Get the bow proc off, go back and finish our back rotation to make sure Poison Injection is going, and that is pretty much how the rotation is going to go. So you basically just want to make sure you're prioritizing your bow proc. You will notice that I am going into a light attack before going into my back bar rotation. So in other words, let's say I'm doing my front bar rotation, I do light attack, bar swap directly into Endless Hail. So I'm not doing something like let's say I want to go into my back bar right now. I'm not doing something like ability bar swap, light attack, You want to make sure you end your front bar rotation on a light attack. It's very important for Advanced Yokeda to try to maintain stacks. And again, if you're using Advanced Yokeda, you want to limit yourself to 3 abilities on the back bar. That does include Incapacitating Strike. That is just to maintain your Advanced Yokeda buff uptime. If you use 4 abilities, then you risk losing your Advanced Yokeda because it lasts for 5 seconds, which is 5 global cooldowns. So with the 4 abilities on the back bar plus your bar swap time, you might end up losing that. So if you have 3, you're in a pretty good spot. You have 2, kind of a little bit less than 2 seconds to spare to bar swap and go back to your front bar to maintain your Advanced Yokeda uptime that way. So now we're going to go ahead and do a 6-min dummy par so you guys get an idea of the DPS that we're able to pull here. Now one thing to keep in mind here is that Nightblades have Major Fracture and Minor Berserk built into their set. Their skill sets. So we have Major Fracture from Surprise Attack, we have Minor Berserk from Relentless Focus. The only other class that has both abilities, both buffs I should say, is going to be the Stamina Warden. So if you want to compare Stamina Nightblades to like a Stamina Templar or Stamina DK, you do need to keep that in mind. That we do have Minor Berserk and we do have Major Fracture, which is not necessarily available in all other classes for self-buff tests. We will need to do a little bit of adjustment there in order to kind of get a more accurate comparison here. So let's go ahead and get started here with our parts. And I will try to narrate throughout it. So you always want to try to end your back bar with Poison Injection or Incapacitating Strike. So when your counter is up to 4, you want to do light attack right into that bow proc ability. So you might need to let Rearming Trap, Endless Hail drop off a little bit while you finish up your back bar rotation or front bar rotation. That's fine, it will happen occasionally because you do want to make sure you're maintaining Relentless Focus the whole time. For example here, we are going to let Rearming Trap drop off a little bit here. Now for Execute, I forgot to mention this while I'm talking about a rotation. For Execute, you can drop Caltrops if you would like. I typically drop Caltrops, some people don't. You will drop Rending Slashes though. You want to maintain that minor force uptime, so you will not be dropping Rearming Trap. You see here that I am dropping Rending and Caltrops from my rotation here. And there you have it. And you also want to try to maintain, obviously, Relentless Focus, and if you execute, it's going to take a while. You also want to maintain Leeching Strikes as well. So in Execute, Endless Hail, Poison Injection, and Minor Force from Rearming Trap, those are going to be your dots that you want to maintain, and obviously your buffs from Relentless Focus and Leeching Strikes. And you just want to keep on using Killer's Blade. For self-buff parses, you want to also use Surprise Attack to make sure you're maintaining Major Fracture, but in Raid you will not be using Surprise Attack at all. So here is our parse here. We managed to pull 53.9k. You will notice that Berserking Warrior, which is our Advanced Yokeda, is a 90% uptime, which is pretty much as high as it'll possibly be in terms of self-buff tests, as long as we are, starting on the back bar here. So Endless Hail, very strong. Arms of Relequen also very strong, so that's why Relequen is such a strong set that you want to keep up. By itself it does just over 6,000 DPS, so you want to make sure to have that here. Killer's Blade is an incredibly strong execute. We only use it 10 times, but it is still number 4 in terms of DPS contributions here, with a max crit of 69.5k. So really powerful execute, and this is one of the reasons why Nightblades are such a strong DPS class here. And Berserker is on our back bar, so we have almost 100% uptime on the back bar because of Endless Hail continuing to proc Berserker while we're on our front bar here. So that is going to be it for this build video. And again, if you do want to compare this to other stamina DPS, do bear in mind we do have Minor Berserk. So just keep that in mind. Not all classes have access to the Mind Berserk or the Major Fracture buff that Nightblades have. If you guys have any questions or comments about this build, please feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. Hopefully you guys found this video informative, and I will see you guys in the next dungeon.